Today is Saturday, August 2nd. We're talking all about building wealth, even if you're worried you're behind on saving for retirement, or fed up with rising prices at the grocery store, or trying to decide if buying a house is an option for you. We're talking about it all with today's guest, Brennan Schlagbaum. He's sharing practical strategies for everything from automating your finances to investing for your kids' futures to breaking down the beliefs that might be holding you back. He's a CPA, a national best-selling author, and host of the Money on My Mind podcast. He's also the founder of Budget Dog, a platform that's helped hundreds of thousands of people build a plan for long-term wealth. So whether you're in your 20s, 40s, or even just getting started at 60, we hope this conversation leaves you feeling more empowered to take control of your money and more confident in your financial future. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, when we provide all the day's news in just 10 minutes. It's fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. It's time for today's Special Edition Saturday. You ready? Let's do this. Brennan Schlagbaum, thank you so much for joining us here on the Newsworthy.
Thanks for having me.
So first, I'm just curious what you know about the average American who's working today, their ability to retire with more or less wealth than their parents.
The biggest thing about wealth building is time. Nothing else I'll say today is more important than how much time do you actually have invested, because compound interest needs time. And so if you start early, if you start and you consistently invest, you're going to be well off and you're going to be totally fine. What I typically run into for those that aren't able to get to that point is they have limiting beliefs around their ability to do so. So I always say, like, the belief system's the most important. Believing that you're able to do is the most important. Once you believe that you can, the rest of the stuff's actually easier. Once you start investing, the rest is actually easier. And I always say, create a system, create an automated financial system that's going to get you there so that you aren't reliant on yourself as a human being, because we're limited. You know, the emotions, the biases, all that kind of stuff, psychology limitations. And if we get that together, it'd be very easy to not only just retire better than our parents, but actually early retire.
What do you think, though, about the impact of things like inflation and housing costs today?
Yeah, I mean, if you look back at, in the 80s, for example, you're looking at total cost with interest rates and inflation then versus now. It's much different. It's harder in today's world. Like, our incomes aren't stretching as far as they once were. 100,000 back in 1990 is a lot different than 100,000 in 2025. It just is based on inflation. I think that you have to be more intentional and you have to be more aware.
What about housing costs? Because I that's something I hear from young people a lot, is like, it is impossible to buy a house today.
Yeah, housing costs, if I remember off the top of my head, back in 1980 or so, a lot of the older generation will be like, well, back in the day, our interest rates were 12%. It's like, yes, but your income to housing costs were a lot different from a multiple perspective. Maybe you had a $20,000 house on a $60,000 income. In today's world, that multiple has really shifted up. My typical rule of thumb is 3 to 5x of your income is where you should land on a house price, annual income, that is. But I do know that a lot of people are struggling with this because house prices are increasing so fast to where that multiple has become like 8x for some areas of this world. And it's just not doable and not attainable. And you have so many different variables playing a factor in this that a lot of people have written this off, especially the younger generation, and they think, well, I might as well just rent.
And I know it's a big debate, but just curious, what's your take on someone buying a house or not?
Yeah, so I think it depends. I have a house. I've always had a house since I was out of school. I've always owned a house, that is. My brother, on the other hand, has moved around in about 7 years to 5 different cities, DC and Chicago and Miami. And so he's always rented, and that makes a lot of sense. I think if you're somewhere a short term and that's going to be short term, I think renting is totally fine. In fact, I would, because the upfront cost of buying are pretty significant. But I do know that if I'm going to stay somewhere for more than 10 years or so, for example, 20, 30, whatever the years you're trying to stay, I think buying makes more sense. But it does depend on the area that you're in. So there are some areas where renting is a lot cheaper, like a lot significantly cheaper. And by doing that, you can invest the difference. Assuming that you're investing the difference, it could make sense.
What about student loan debt being more normalized in recent decades? What role has that played in a young person's ability to get ahead financially?
There's a rule of thumb I always use for anybody that goes to college, and this goes for somebody that graduated 2014 like myself, or somebody that's graduating like my brother just did last year. 1x of your starting salary let's say it's 50,000, let's say it's 75,000. You should have no more debt coming out of school than that. There are so many opportunities before school, headed into college, from the ACT, SAT, stuff like that, scholarship opportunities, to even being there, in whether you're working on campus, whether you're making a bunch of money through writing articles in the business school like I did and made some extra money, whether you're clicking a few buttons within your school portal to make $500 per semester. Like, little things are like that all over the place. And like I always say, opportunity lies everywhere. So if you're looking for opportunity, you'll find it. I think student loans are impacting people in a massive way. People are going to school nowadays for careers that are paying $50,000 annually for a lifetime, but they're paying $200,000. Like, that ROI does not make sense anymore. And I do think we're running into this weird spot where a lot of people were told college is the best thing since sliced bread, and everybody should be going, myself included. And we go with this assumption that it's going to provide amazing ROI no matter what we do. And those children, literally I'm saying children, are like 16, 17 years old when they're starting to talk about this stuff. They don't have a clue about what's out there, what's available, all that stuff. So you have to be very focused on why you're doing what you're doing, not just doing it because your parents told you. I always look at college as a kind of a bridge to what you're trying to do. So if you are looking to become a CPA at Deloitte, like myself in my past, like, I had to go to school to get my accounting and finance, get 150 credit hours to get my CPA to then go into Deloitte. If I was pursuing something else, like let's say what I'm doing current day, I don't know if school would have been as valuable as it was to me. And I don't know if it would have been worth it. And that's wild to say to me because, I would never have thought that 10 years ago. I think college is a great tool, but it's not a tool for everybody.
How do you think about balancing enjoying your money, getting what you feel you need or want today versus saving for the future or for your kids?
Yeah, value-based budgeting is what I've always talked about. And a lot of people will come to me and they'll instantly think, just like this preconceived notion, that budgeting means taking away or cheap or not, I can't spend money. Now, flip that. Let's spend our money accordingly in line with our values. There should be no guilt or shame around that, no matter what you spend, because you've decided, you've chosen, and you've now aligned your life with the proper spend. Use your money as a tool to get you to where you want to get. Similar to college, like, use it to get you to the next goal. What is your end goal with the tool that you have in your hand? What are you trying to accomplish? You have to ask yourself that, and you have to be really honest and raw. And I think a lot of people feel guilt around this. They're like, man, I really want to go on a vacation every year. It's like, okay, then do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Enjoy. Like, align your spend with that vacation every year.
How do you think that somebody can get started with that? Is it sitting down with a spreadsheet? Is it looking at your accounts and adding it up? And what's your advice for somebody who says, okay, I want to be more intentional. How do I get started?
This is the best thing I've ever done for anybody. And I didn't even know when I first did it that it was going to help people so much. Look back at the last 3 months of your spend and just look at it and come to that conclusion. It's similar to looking at it. You look in the mirror and you realize, hey, I might be the problem. Let's check it out. What's going on underneath the surface? And when you look back at your last 3 months of spend, you're going to know where you're spending money, number one. So the unknown becomes the known. You're going to understand whatever you say to your spouse or your friends or your family, what your values are. Your bank account shows your values. That can be an uncomfortable reality. But that process is typically a very enlightening process. We have most people that do this, especially our six-figure earners, on average are finding about $2,000 extra a month that was going to wasteful spending that they no longer align with. And so when they do this process, and it's very simple, we have AI tools to kind of do it real fast for you. But if you're just doing it, literally pull up your bank statements, your credit card statements, and just see where you spent the money. We have free tools all over our site. So once you know, you can make adjustments going forward. And when you make adjustments going forward, you see what's available, and then you see what the potential is, and all those like belief systems that you had once of I can't do this, I don't have enough money, all of a sudden are wiped out. And when that belief system shifts, that is when you shift your identity to becoming somebody that's wealthy. You'll get into the right environments with the right systems, and you'll get the right results. And that is a very powerful shift, and it's very simple, but it's very emotional for a lot of people.
You mentioned AI tools. I know you've also talked about automation, and something we've talked about on the show before too, where you can set things up once and then you don't have to think so hard about it in the future.
I'm a big believer in automated financial system. And what I mean by that is that once you solve your math problem, is like how I like to say it, within your finances, and this is within your balance sheet, your budget, and your amortization schedule. You should automate your debt paydowns. You should automate your fixed bills. You should automate your investments. Everything should be automated to where you're not making decisions because you've already made the decision with the system that you built. And that system says you should do X, Y, and Z. And if you go with X, Y, and Z, you'll get intended result that you're trying to get. If you go away and you try to manually do all this, things get really complicated. Things get really dicey. The human limitation kind of comes into play. The stock market might be up today, it might be down tomorrow. Your emotions are going to be toyed with. There's news articles everywhere. There's, your colleagues are saying stuff, your family's saying stuff, you're scrolling Twitter, doom scrolling. You're doing all these things as a human being, and that plays into the decision-making process that you have. If you allow that to overtake you, it's really hard to get wealthy because you're distracted, you're nervous, you're anxious, and that's a really low vibrational state that's not going to help you. But if you reverse that and engineer that and say, hey, I know I'm like that sometimes, let's create a system that, has conditional logic, that does the automation for me, that tells me if I do this, I get this result. And then let's lock that system. Let's move out of the way and let's go enjoy our life. Let's go value-based spend in line with our budget. And we're going to live a really good life and get really, really good results.
Still ahead, what's the one biggest mistake people make when it comes to building wealth and why it's more common than you think? And for parents, what you really need to know to set your kids up for future financial success, including the best accounts to open and how to use them wisely. Plus, Brennan shares a personal take, how a rare diagnosis in his own family has impacted how he thinks about money. That's coming up, but first, a break for our sponsors. One easy way that I've found to make sure my kiddo is getting the nutrition he needs is with Hiya's children's vitamins. In fact, even before they became a sponsor, I was giving my son their best-selling children's vitamins and the Hiya probiotics already. Why? Well, most children's vitamins seem basically like candy in disguise, but not Hiya. Hiya has 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk. They're instead pediatrician-approved chewables that my son seriously looks forward to having every morning. Plus, I appreciate that every single batch is third-party tested for heavy metals and microbials in a qualified GMP-compliant lab using scientifically validated testing methods. Oh, and if you're tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens, Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods. It's a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with more than 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. Yeah, half off. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website, so go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy, hiyahealth.com/newsworthy, and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. The Newsworthy is also brought to you by OneSkin. It's that time of year you're going to need to protect your skin from the sun. That's why you'll want to use a broad spectrum sunscreen every day. And my favorite is OneSkin's SPF Face. It's my daily go-to for the face because I love how lightweight it is, so it doesn't feel greasy or too thick on my face. And yet I feel confident knowing it's protecting and repairing my skin at the same time in that one simple step. In fact, OneSkin's SPFs block UV rays with non-nano zinc oxide and neutralize the free radicals that come from not only UV, but also pollution and blue light with a potent blend of antioxidants like vitamin C and the OS1 peptide. OneSkin was founded in 2016 by an all-woman team of scientists with PhDs in skin regeneration, stem cell biology, immunology, and bioinformatics. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. For a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using code NEWSWORTHY at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with the code NEWSWORTHY. And after your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Now back to my conversation with Brennan Schlagbaum. What do you think people in general get wrong about wealth? What's the biggest mistake you see people make when trying to get their finances in order?
It starts with the belief system. I've talked about this a lot, actually. They don't believe they can do it. Like point blank, that is the biggest mistake. Anything else from there, from a technical perspective, is extremely teachable. Anybody has the knowledge to do it. I always joke with all my students is every single student I work with has a more complicated job that requires more thought and more details into their everyday life than personal finance does. Personal finance is not challenging once you jump into the world and you're educated. And education, anybody can get educated on it. So therefore, what's stopping people? It's usually limiting beliefs, and that's the belief system. And so it's, you grew up with people that didn't build wealth, and a lot of people never get out of that, and they never change their belief that, hey, I can become wealthy. Actually, I can do this. And when they realize that, I think a compound interest calculator might be the most enlightening tool out there outside of the 3-month look back analysis, because it shows you how $25 or $50 over a long period of time invested actually has a pretty significant and sizable impact on your life. And when you see that small impact, you're like, well, wow. I mean, $25, I can do that every single week. What if I did 200? What if I did 500? And it makes you start dreaming. And when you start to dream and start to believe, you start to align yourself with those beliefs. And it's like CBT therapy. And you just align your actions, beliefs, and thoughts, and it's a circular motion. And eventually you go the right way and you start to compound your wealth.
And I know you talk a lot about this belief system. What do you say to people who say, but what about some of these things that are out of our control, like interest rates and housing costs and inflation?
I'm a big believer in controlling the controllable. So those things aren't controllable, and I don't act like they are, or unless you want to run for Congress and play a role in changing that direction, like that's a whole nother conversation. But I don't think those are the things you have to focus on. I think you can focus on your skill sets that produce your income, and then finding a place that strategically makes sense for you from a mathematical perspective, based on all of the external factors you can't control. And I talk about this on a very, very deep, like personal level, is like, my daughter was diagnosed with a 1 in 16,000 syndrome. I don't have control on her being diagnosed. It was a gene mutation. But what I can do is I can get her the proper therapies. I can do everything in my power to make sure she's in a good position. And that applies to personal finance as well. Like, it doesn't matter what you're looking at. Personal finance is the same exact way. Same with a job, same with a spouse, same with a relationship. All of that stuff is the same. You can only control what you can control.
So what did you do, though, when you had kids to try to set them up for success? Like, walk us through the specific accounts that you opened, what you recommend contributing, et cetera.
Yeah, there's 3 specific accounts. So the first one was on the topic of college, the 529. So that's specifically for higher education, but it also can be used for K through 12. So we do that on a monthly basis. Second account, which I think is the most important account here personally, is the taxable brokerage account. And it's actually in our name. So my wife and I, so it's not the children's account, technically speaking. If I open my Vanguard account, it would be our account, but it's earmarked for my daughters so that we can use that for whatever. So if they want to start their first business, if they want to buy, a down payment on a home, if they want to purchase something in the future, this is the liquidity to do so without having it locked up for one particular purpose. So it gives a flexibility, which I'm big on flexibility and choice, so that you have the freedom to choose. The other account is the Roth IRA. So this is just earned income. So earned income for their future retirement is really what that comes down to. So this is something that we're funding through any earned income that they have over the years. It's not necessarily something we fund with our own money. Those 3 accounts, I think, give you a really nice snapshot into helping your child do whatever they would like to do. And it's really in line with the conversation today, is like giving them that power and that choice, and helping them take that next step without babying them to the end goal, is like letting them guide you. You give them the pathway, you give them the options, and they get to select and get to choose specifically as to what they would like to do. And you're just supplementing that dream for them.
And for newborns today, there might also be a government account now that they can get that starts with $1,000 that they can't take out until later. But again, the same concept that they're building wealth now. So that's going to be a new option, in my understanding.
Yes. Yeah, that is for, I think it's children that were born after January 1st, 2025 and up to 2029 as of today. It's obviously $1,000 are funded by the government. The goal is to start that compound interest. Back to the earlier conversation, is the biggest wealth building factor is time.
I know you were talking about time is the most important thing, but if there is someone who's not relatively young, say Gen X or even a boomer, and they haven't started saving yet, maybe they even have thousands in debt, what would be some advice you would give for them?
It's still doable. And I know a lot of people think it's too late. I get people saying it's too late for their 7-year-old child. I'm like, man, if it's too late for your 7-year-old child, I don't know, everybody's SOL. So it doesn't matter what age you are. It really doesn't. Like, there's always potential of gain if you put your system in place today, or you start to take this serious today. I was talking to somebody yesterday. They were 50 years old, and they're like, man, I really want to start, but I feel like I'm so far behind. And let me ask kind of a reverse question, which I ask everybody that says this, is I say, what happens if you don't? You're even going to be worse off. So I'm not saying your situation might not be ideal. I don't know what the outcome's ultimately going to be, but I can tell you it's going to be a lot better than where you're at right now, which will be a huge win in your book. And so, yeah, you can do it, but you got to start now. You got to take you have to have some urgency for your own results.
Any other really actionable or popular advice that we haven't talked about yet?
I think the biggest thing behind finance in general is the belief system that somebody has coming into it, because everything else that stems from that is actually very easy to know and to learn, and is very doable from anybody out there in America. And so you have the opportunity to do that. But I would say focus on your belief system and understanding why you think the way you think. We work with a behavioral psychologist for every student that comes through our academy for a good reason. We know that's holding people back more so than the spreadsheet or the technical steps that you're taking. If I were to say there was one other thing outside of like the 3-month look back analysis, challenge your belief system.
Learn more from our guest today at budgetdog.com and check out his podcast, Money on My Mind. His book is called Roadmap to Financial Freedom. And of course, we'll link to all of it in today's episode notes at thenewsworthy.com. And a quick reminder, we provide all the day's headlines to know in our regular 10-minute news roundups every Monday through Friday. From politics to tech to entertainment, we have you covered in our fast, fair, fun style. So join us again on Monday for the latest news to know. Until then, have a great rest of your weekend.